Gothmog was Lieutenant of Morgul, and he was second in command during the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. In the Peter Jackson adaptation of The Return of the King, we see him portrayed as an orc, but not just any orc. He was an ugly, mutated orc, and he had the ability to evade falling rocks like a boss. But was he really intended to be an orc, or could he be something else? Let me know in the comment section what you think Gothmog really was. So first of all, let's see how he was portrayed in the movies. And there we see him as this ugly mutated orc commander who is controlling the orcs that are coming from Minas Morgul. They attack the rangers in Osgiliath. We see him later during the Battle of the Pelennor Fields riding a walk where we can clearly depict that he is a commanding officer, that he is a commander among the orcs. And then eventually he evades falling rocks from Minas Tirith like a boss. Even this troll would never forget this moment. But at the end of the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, he was killed by both Gimli and Aragorn after he tries to kill Eowyn. But my question is, was he really intended to be an orc? I'm going to read a little bit of his first appearance in The Return of the King. There they had been mustered for the sack of the city and the rape of Gondor, waiting the call of their captain. He now was destroyed. But Gothmog, the lieutenant of Morgul, had flung them into the fray, Easterlings with axes, and Variags of Khand, Southrons in scarlet, and out of far Harad, black men like half-trolls, with white eyes and red tongues. Some now hastened up behind the Rohirrim, others held westward to hold off the forces of Gondor and prevent the joining with Rohan. So here we see his first appearance, where he goes and commands the Orcs, Eastlings, the Haradrim to attack both Gondor and the troops of Rohan. But that is literally the only passage that we see him portrayed in the books where we see his name mentioned. Nothing more, nothing less. We don't even know what race he is, how did he gain his power, and this gives room for a lot of speculation, and that is something that I like about the books of J.R.R. Tolkien, is we have these characters that we don't have much to go on. First of all, Peter Jackson took his own thoughts about it, and in his case, he thought it was an orc, but in my opinion, I don't really think that he is an orc. I personally think that he is something else, and the reason that I think that he is not an orc is because personally I think that Sauron would never let an orc among these high ranks of officers. I think that he sees the orcs more like the foot people, the common soldiers who are there in massive numbers to attack the enemy, but they are not strategically wise enough to command the other troops. So who else could he be? Well, there is a possibility, when I think about it, is a Nazgul, one of the 9, one of the ring wraiths. But then again, it would be strange, because Khamûl, the Shadow of the East, is the second in command of the Nazgul. Seeing another Nazgul being the second in command during the battle where he is also there is strange. The only reason I could think that would work is because Gothmog is then more strategically advanced than Khamûl, and that is why he was put in second rank. Personally, I don't think that he is a Nazgul. So if he is not an orc and he is not a Nazgul, what else could he be? Well, he could be a bulldog, and I'm not talking about a dog. I'm talking about a Maya. And these Maya were of lesser form than Balrogs. They were also corrupted by Morgoth during the First Age, and they took the form of the primitive orcs. But in my personal opinion, what I think he really is a Black Númenórean, just like the mouth of Sauron. You might wonder, what is a Black Númenóreans? And the Black Númenóreans are descendant from the King's Men from the land of Númenor. During the Second Age, the people of Númenor have put establishments on the coast of Middle-earth, just like Umbar, for example, which is a very important one, where a lot of the Black Númenóreans are stationed. They survived the downfall of Númenor because they were still on Middle-earth. They were not on the island or on the ships of Ar-Pharazôn. They swore an allegiance to Sauron, they worshipped him. The mouth of Sauron became into the high ranks of the Tower of Barad-dûr because he had great power, his great evil, great cunning, and he grew into the ranks of Mordor. And I personally think that Gothmog was just like this. He was also a Black Númenórean who grew into ranks through his power, his cunning, and his strategic mastermind. Because he was commander during the battlefield, so he must have a lot of strategic thoughts and think like a great commander. So I personally think that he is a Black Númenórean, but I could be completely wrong here. So we don't even know what he really is. I think the only person who knows who he is Tolkien himself. Apart from some Hollywood scenes, I think that Peter Jackson did a great job. I personally don't agree with him about Gothmog being an orc, but I have my reasons for that, and I do believe that Peter Jackson has his reasons for him being an orc. So in that case, I can agree with him. If there's room for speculation, we don't know what is right. In a previous video, we have covered what race Gothmog could actually belong to, and a lot of you suggested that he could be an orc, and I think that is due to the Peter Jackson adaptation where he is actually portrayed as an orc, but I don't think he is, simply because Sauron wouldn't have any orc into his high ranks of his army, and I'm going to explain to you all of that in this video. Before we go and spam the comment section that there are many orc leaders and many orc captains known in Middle-earth, I'm going to stop you. Just wait till the end of the video, because I'm going to explain to you, even with these leaders in mind, no orc would have been placed second in command during the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. So let's go and dive into the video. There are many orc leaders known to us. Just like Azog, who commanded the orcs during the battle between the dwarves and orcs. Even his son Bolg commanded the troops to attack the Lonely Mountain when Smaug was defeated during the Battle of the Five Armies. And during the quest of Erebor, we come across the Goblin King, one who rules a goblin kingdom under the Misty Mountains. They are all leaders of an orc army, and this could happen. There are ranks even between the orcs. There will always be one who is in control. That is just the way it is. That is just the way of their primitive lives. They live in groups with one smarter orc as their leader, just like Azog or Bolg or even the Goblin King. They are all far more intelligent than the average orc. But that does not mean that Sauron trusts them. He sees the orcs as his foot soldiers, his slaves. When Sauron was gone at the end of the Second Age, and even when Morgoth was defeated at the end of the First Age, the orcs scattered and lived in smaller tribes. It was because of the will of Sauron and before him of Morgoth, who kept the orcs in line. Due to this domination, their lives were reduced to an ant-life-like situation. Otherwise, when an orc tribe lived closely to another orc tribe, they would have slaughtered each other. That is just the way they are. They are reckless and would kill everything that comes in their way, even if they were orcs. During Sauron's domination, he focused their hatred and their recklessness towards the men and elves instead of each other. I'm not saying that with Sauron's control things like this could never happen, but they are extremely reduced. Things like this could still happen even in Sauron's own realm of Mordor. Just like we see when Sam was looking for Frodo in Cirith Ungol, the orcs used their recklessness on each other. Shagrat was ordered to bring all Frodo's belongings to the Tower of Barad-dûr, but Gorbak wanted to keep the mithril shirt for himself. And this discussion eventually led to Shagrat killing Gorbak, which then eventually made an entire snowball effect and the two groups of orcs slaughtered each other. Which, if you come to think about it, was quite beneficial for Sam. The orcs were easy to control and easy to breathe, and that is why Sauron wanted them for his army. Their number were extremely high, and when in control they would give their lives fighting against the enemy without fleeing the battlefield. Unlike Saruman, who created the Uruk-hai, when they saw Erkenbrand, Gandalf and the Rohirrim arrive during the Battle of the Hornburg, they were scared and they ran away, which was not really a good thing because there were a lot of angry who weren't standing there. We even see later down the story when Sauron was defeated and the ring destroyed, his control of the orcs was gone, and they scattered immediately. They ran away because they were clueless of what to do next, and their fear grew again when they saw Aragorn and the army of the West. So in this case, the chance of one of these creatures being a very high-ranking commander during the Battle of the Pelennor Fields with only the Witch King above him is just impossible. Not only for what I just said in the last few minutes, but also because the Easterlings and even the Haradrim wouldn't take orders from any orc. They are indeed in allegiance with Sauron, but they are just too proud for that. And that is why I believe that Gothmog is not an orc. He was second in command during the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. And when the Witch King fell, he regrouped all the legions. The orcs, Easterlings, Haradrim and the Variags of Khand fell all under his command. So that is why I believe that no orc could be among the high ranks of the Witch King and even the mouth of Sauron. Okay, now you have my permission to spam the comment section.
Gothmog, the Lieutenant of Morgul, is a commander we witnessed during the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. But did you know that there was another Gothmog in the First Age?
What did you say?
He was a Balrog of Morgoth, and not just any, but he was the Lord of Balrogs, the boss of Durin's Bane that we see in Moria. But could these two Gothmogs be one and the same? A couple of weeks ago I asked you the same question and a lot of you said that they weren't the same. So why don't we go and dive into the lore of Middle-earth that we all know and love and see if you were right. So let's go and start the video. But before we go and cover if this is actually true, let's first of all take a look who Gothmog from the First Age really was. Gothmog was the Lord of Balrogs, High Captain of Angband, and served the Dark Lord Morgoth during the First Age. He was the most feared Balrog under Morgoth's command because of all the death that he created. He mortally wounded Feanor and slayed Fingon during the Nirnaeth Arnoedath, or the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. So he was responsible for the death of 2 High Kings of the Noldor, and not only that, but he captured Húrin under command of Morgoth and brought him to Angband after Húrin had slain 70 orcs and trolls. He was later slain during the fall of Gondolin by the elf Ectelion, who was slain as well due to his battle with Gothmog. And you might wonder, if he died during the fall of Gondolin, how could he be alive 6,000 years later? Well, a Balrog is just like Gandalf or even Sauron. They are all Maiar, a spiritual being that helped the Valar with the creation of the world. The Maiar are just like the Valar or even the elves, bound to the world. When the elves die, their spirit goes to the halls of Mandos, or the halls of the awaiting. The elves would be re-embodied and brought back to their kin that lives in Aman. This is clearly shown with the elf Glorfindel. He was defeated during the fall of Gondolin, where he battled a Balrog and sacrificed himself so the others could escape. His spirit departed to the halls of Mandos, but he was in the Second Age re-embodied and brought back to Middle-earth as an ambassador of the Valar. We see a similar moment occur when Gandalf sacrifices himself so the Fellowship can escape the halls of Moria. He kills Durin's Bane, where he also fell. His spirit left his body and returned to Aman, where Eru Ilúvatar personally brought him back as Gandalf the White. It is clear to see when an elf or a Maiar dies, their spirit returns to Aman, although it's not really described in any book. I assume that the spirits of the fallen Balrogs also return to the halls of Mandos, but they wouldn't receive a new body to house their spirit in. They would be trapped there forever. It could also be that the Balrogs would be trapped in the timeless void, just like they did with Melkor. But none of that is sure, these are only my assumptions. What do you think would have happened to the spirit of the Balrog? But let's say that his spirit returned to the halls of Mandos, and say that he could escape and re-embody himself somehow. Then there is still the question, would he work for Sauron? They have known each other from the First Age. They were both high in command when Morgoth was the Dark Lord. But could he have worked for Sauron? Well, honestly, no. You see, the Balrogs resembled their master Morgoth in the case that they want to see the world destroyed, unlike Sauron who want to dominate it and control it. If they would have worked together, first of all, Gothmog wouldn't have worked for Sauron, he would have at least worked with Sauron. But then again, this could never happen because their vision of the world is very different. And Sauron already had a great taste for what it is to be the big boss. But there is something else that Sauron already had a great taste for, even before he became the #1 Dark Lord of Middle-earth, and that is subscribing to the Table of Durin, so he did miss out on any Middle-earth content. So why don't you do the same and hit that subscribe button? So Gothmog, Lieutenant of Morgul, is not the reincarnated Gothmog Lord of Balrogs. Even if his spirit returned to the halls of Mandos, he would never have a chance to escape. The name Gothmog was only chosen for Sauron's commander to spread fear among Sauron's enemies.